Anybody else want to chime in with the story they want to hear us read? Because, let's see, the Stardust story, that is 5 chapters at 1,000 words. And then we have the Kitsuchan story, that is 10 chapters, but it's 5,000 words.
I'll read whatever it is you wish, and I think at this point you can handle whatever content's in after watching Alien, listening to Cupcakes. Yeah, that wasn't actually a bad story.
Yeah, no, I liked it a lot, but it was also not hard to beat out the fact that I read Sweet Apple Massacre first, and that was terrible.
I mean, just an overall good summary for it was a lot. Don't even have to go any further than that. It was just a lot.
It was rape, murder, death. It was a bunch of things. Oh, the Black Hole Vagina. Yes, that was Doomsday Womb by Comics Nix.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah. It's been a while since we did a Comics Nix story. I should probably see what we haven't done yet, and maybe put that on the list for a future episode.
I want to ask this. They have already told me, but it's been a while. Is Comic Nix a troll?
Probably. I don't know if it's ever been confirmed if he was serious or a troll, but I'd say most of the stuff we read, probably troll.
My best answer I can give you is, as I shrug.
I was talking to my brother about this, I think it was yesterday, because he brought up my Immortal, and I think he had the same question. He's like, do you think that was somebody really writing it, or do you think it's a work? And for those who don't know, work is a wrestling term basically meaning an act to get the audience worked up.
That was definitely a troll fic.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I was first introduced to it through Cloud 8745, I couldn't, it took away something from the story for me if I thought that it was just something somebody wrote with the intention of being bad. All these years later, though, I find that it means, I feel like it has greater character than I initially gave it credit for back then. And I think now I can comfortably say, yeah, I believe it is a troll fic, and it was expertly done, because it was just, a lot of the jokes were well timed, they were reused, and the entire story was filled from head to toe, just full of tropes in use at the time of its creation. I don't know who wrote it, if it was one person, actual group of people writing bad fic at the time to annoy readers online, or what have you, but I salute that person for their creativity. And see, and when it comes to troll fics, I think that's really what you want to strive for. A lot of people try to do something like Star Turds, which is confirmed troll fic. He wrote it with the intention of being a troll. And, of course...
I've just forgotten that story.
And, he sells it on Amazon for charity purposes. Which I didn't even know that until he, messaged me and was like, hey, yeah, I wrote this, and, can I use a quote from your reading to put on the Amazon page? And I'm like, yeah. So I picked something about, I said I need Care Bears after this. And so he's like, okay, I'll do that, and he put it on there. And, well, that was utterly horrible, and I couldn't recommend anybody read that past, giving to charity. That's like, here's my buck, I'm just gonna put that fic right into the recycle bin. But, in the end, as a troll person, even if you're writing to troll people, I think what you really need to work on is to make it as entertaining as possible. Because while you might be trolling, you're also trying to create a story for people to enjoy, not just to, upset them or piss them off. Like Cupcakes, for example. I don't know if that was serious or a troll, but it was well done, and it was something I genuinely enjoyed. Sweet Apple Massacre just seemed like it was just there to kill a bunch of characters and give them horrible deaths, just because the author could or didn't like them or whatever the reasoning behind that was. And that's not something I could enjoy because, first of all, I don't watch My Little Pony, so I don't know anything about the characters. And you could tell that there was a strict tonal difference between the storytelling of one My Little Pony story that had torture and death versus the other story, which also had torture and death, but one was vastly captivating as opposed to the other that wasn't, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Is you still want to write a good story and not just something you're going to shit out and not care about 2 weeks later.
Speaking of stories that probably took at least an hour to write, another legitimate set of troll fics, this may ring a bell. Half-Life, Whole Life Consequences.
Yeah, I would.
Oh, and what a bell to ring.
Written by Squirrel King, who, within the same year, admitted that he was a troll.
And that's fair. I mean, in the case of Squirrel King, I didn't really find anything, from what I remember, I didn't find anything really annoying or offensive. It's just kind of, the writing was very basic. Let's be as vague as possible and write a thing, and there you go. If you guys want, like, actual writing tips, because I see Gotta Knockers takes notes, and of course, Jaden talks about revision, I would say the biggest thing is to think of something that you would personally enjoy, and then write that. Don't write part of it, just write the whole thing over the course of time, however long it takes you to finish the whole thing. And then just put it away for about a month or something. And then whenever you remember it, like a month or two later, just pull it back out and look over it. If you still see a potential in that story, I would start revising it. And then consider maybe publishing it online. The same thing goes if you're doing an original story. Because you want to make sure that as you write, you take actually a break from it, because you're going to notice a lot of things that you wouldn't initially noticed had you not taken a break from it.
I myself have experience in this, so I write stories myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so months and months back, I was writing a tale, and I figured, you know what, I should check on some stories that I made like 2 years back. So I look, and now keep in mind, this particular story, I had put in time and effort, worked on it, revised it, showed it to my mother, who's she's a beta reader for quite a few authors. We both went over it. It looked good. I repeated this. I made sure to revise it several times. Months later, I caught a couple things, had to fix it, otherwise good. I checked it again like last month, and I still found typos to fix. So it's never a concern that will go away. It'll happen regardless, unless you're super duper careful. It's always a risk.
Yeah. I think I've told this story before, but when I first started writing fanfiction, I was like 16, I think. I had my very first laptop that my father bought me, and it had a word processing program, but it did not actually spell check anything. And I didn't have access, like, at the time, the library didn't, like, have their own computers, they didn't have free internet, they didn't have anything like that. So there wasn't any place I could go to get a spell check. Like, even at the time, web browsers did not check your spelling, so you were just kind of hoping against hope that nothing was spelled wrong or your grammar wasn't stupid. So I remember sitting at my desk, and then I would have trouble, like, how do I spell this word? How do I spell it? And I had a dictionary I would actually bring out and flip through to hopefully find the correct spelling of the word I was trying to type. And I remember posting stories on fanfiction.net, and that was a lot of grief I would get, would be my spelling, because I have dyslexia, and part of being dyslexic is you can't spell for shit. And a lot of people would be like, well, this would have been great, but there's so many typos. I'm like, I know, right? And I have no way of checking and fixing them. And no one that would ever believe me that I didn't have a spell checker on the word processor that I used. And this was before, like, I really knew, like, about torrents or anything. When most torrents definitely were viruses and the whatnot, and not the actual programs they said they were.
Well, another thing, I guess, to keep on with the mantra, with the self-revising thing, read your own work aloud.
Yes.
If you're reading it out loud, you're more likely to catch a mistake that would have slipped past you. And it's especially helpful to make sure that your characters they sound like they're supposed to. Like, let's say, oh, this is supposed to be a very bombastic character, but this particular sentence makes him sound kind of pathetic, or just generally not like how he's supposed to. But, like, sometimes you don't catch that stuff until you're emoting it out loud.
Yeah. The only other thing, and this sort of goes against your method, Jaden, but I discovered over time that the person you wanted to be your beta reader, I mean, now there are exceptions, but the person you want to be your beta reader really shouldn't be like a friend or anybody you're related to. And the reason why you want to try to avoid that, and I'm not saying she did a bad job or anything. This is just.
No, I completely agree with you.
I mean, this is just general advice that I was given. Is they're going to be nice to you, and they're not actually going to give you the kind of editorial remarks that you need in order to make your story better than what it currently is.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, there's exceptional situations to this. But
Yeah.
a friend of mine, I showed him a recent fan fiction story I wrote, and, well, it was crushing. He tore the story a new one, to say the least. But I am grateful that
Yes.
he pointed out everything that was wrong.
Yeah.
So there was a lot wrong.
And then also I would say don't be afraid to change beta readers. Because once I discovered beta readers were a thing, I went to one person over and over again, and then they decided that they weren't going to do that anymore. And so then I picked up a completely different person whose stories I had read before and I liked, and I'm like, well, I hope this is going to be good, it works out. Because you're always kind of embarrassed, I get, or maybe that's just me, to like share your story with like another person for feedback. Because you're always worried, like, are they going to like the story? Is it going to be okay? Is it going to be absolutely horrible and they hate your guts forever and never want to talk to you again? But I found that I really liked their beta style far more than the other person that I had before, because the first person, they would simply just talk to me about what they read, maybe be like, okay, there's a couple misspelled words, yada yada. This person actually took the time, not necessarily change anything within the story, but like they left like notes and stuff. Like
That's
all
my
over
favorite
it.
kind, yeah.
Yeah, in different colors too, so it would be easier for me to know where my story was and where their notes were next to the area that they had an issue with. And I found that so much more helpful than what I was previously doing, which was really, that person was just, leaving like a text review basically, with maybe a couple of spelling fixes and the whatnot. Again, there was nothing wrong with that person's betaing style, but I just liked the second person a lot better. It worked better for me.
Writing is not easy, especially if you want to write a good story. You just got to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anybody can write, but it's going to take effort to write well. And again, it's not going to be perfect your first time through. And I think a lot of people get stressed out when what they write isn't the perfect thing the first time through. A lot of people expect writers, much like any kind of artist, when they look at somebody else's art and they're like, oh man, that's so great and wonderful. I could never do that. I'm like, you can do that. You just have to work for it. Well, I have to work for it. But man, they make it look so effortless. Dude, I've been writing since I was in 5th grade. The reason it looks effortless to you is because I've been there, I've tried that, and I found out what worked for me and what doesn't. It just takes time and effort. It takes time and effort.
I've been writing since I was 6, and I'm 30 years old. I still haven't improved. That's how long it can take.
And even then, I still wouldn't consider myself like the world's best writer. And that's also something people deal with, is they get annoyed and discouraged because they feel they're not good enough or they haven't made any progress. And again, guys, you're not going to notice your own progress. It's something that, much like any kind of art, you have to look at what you did. This is why I like the Draw This Again meme for art. Because you could draw something when you're 13 and then draw that same thing again when you're 23, and you still may not be the world's greatest artist, but you can definitely see where you have improved a lot in 10 years and just didn't notice it. And so the same thing goes for writing. Sorry guys, we got off topic from stories to talking about actual writing advice.
But
Well, I mean, I wouldn't call it time wasted.
No, it's not time wasted, but I know people aren't here to hear me talk about how to write. They're here to listen to us rant about a story that's awful.
Well, isn't this what it's supposed to amount to?
Yeah, pretty much.